Today I am posting video interviews with the mums of 3 former students of Bradstow School. These 3 mums have bravely decided to speak out about what they believe to be the mistreatment of their children whilst in the care of Bradstow School. What the mums say is straight from their hearts and full of love and compassion for their children. It can't have been easy for them to speak so openly, and tears were shed, including mine as we did the videoing. The 3 mums claim that when they raised their concerns about the mistreatment of their children with senior management at the school, they were misled, they were lied to and bullied in an effort to cover up the truth about the mistreatment of their children. Each of the 3 mums have amassed large files of documents which I've seen and which, in my opinion, substantiate the mistreatment of their children and the lying and the cover-up by the school's management team. Damning Ofsted reports support the claims of the mums, as does information shared with me by other parents whose children have attended Bradstow School. Recent press statements made by the GMB trade union, which has many members working at the school, also support the mums' claims of mismanagement and bullying by senior staff, especially by head teacher Sarah Adams and her deputy Elliot Blackmore, both of whom are named in the GMB press release. I've also received information from several members of staff at the school which confirm the allegations made about Bradstow's senior management team. On the basis of what the mums say in these interviews and all the other available evidence, it's my personal belief that Bradstow School is being appallingly mismanaged by its leadership team, and that this mismanagement presents a risk to the health, safety and well-being of the school students, their parents and carers and those who work there. But as a parent of 2 profoundly learning disabled daughters, I want to make it clear that I am wholeheartedly in support of special education provision for young people with major disabilities. That's why I support the saving of Bradstow School, but not at any price, and most certainly not under its current leadership. I call on Wandsworth Council, who own the school, to suspend its current leadership team and conduct an urgent independent inquiry into the serious management failures and dismiss anyone who is found guilty of misconduct. I will be publishing more about the management of Bradstow School over the next couple of weeks, which will shine even more light on the appalling situation there. If you have any information about the mismanagement of the school, please contact me. My details are on the video. Could you tell me when and how long your child was at Bradstow School?
Do you want me to name my child? Because I don't care.
It's entirely up to you.
So Kay started in April 2021 till February the 10th, 2023.
So 2.5, 3 years there.
Yeah, problems showed after the first year. So I'd say August 2022.
And sort of problems were developing? What were your concerns?
So it was the short breaks, basically in the summer holidays, that she couldn't cope with, because even though they told me that it was like a 24-hour curriculum, it would pretty much present itself the same as what it would in the school year, obviously because routine is key. But it wasn't. It was obviously more days out. It was different staff. It wasn't the same staff, which we wasn't aware of. So yeah, there was a few incidents, and that's when they started restraining my profoundly deaf autistic child.
And
for her safety.
So a system of restraint was introduced.
Yes, and it seemed to be supine every single time.
Supine being on the floor?
Being on the floor, which I'd already had a discussion with, I think it was Sarah Adams when Kay started, because you go through the paperwork and it says about instruments being used and stuff, and they reassured me that that wouldn't be used at all. They was getting away from that. So that was when she first started, after April 2021, that they assured me that that weren't their process anymore.
Were you told about restraint being used? Did they proactively tell you?
Basically, I think it was, so she was in one house, which was Cedar House, when she first started, which she seemed to thrive. She was always out, she seemed happy, she seemed smiley, she seemed content. Obviously, it's the first time that she had been away from us, ever. So when they called me, they said we had to use it, unfortunately, because of the high intensity of her causing self-injurious behaviour and lashing out at others. So it's for her safety as well as others. That's how they explained it.
Right.
And it was in August 2021, 2022. Can't even remember the dates.
So
August 2022, yeah.
So what happened after that? I mean, obviously, putting myself in your place, I'd be really concerned and worried what was happening.
Well, obviously, as a child with complex needs that's challenging, obviously they're there for a reason.
Yes.
And you give them, the heartbreaking decision is, you know, you're not good enough to obviously give your child what they need. Your child should be able to thrive, and with professionals and people that sell you a dream now. So you believe them that it's your child.
Yeah.
Like it is, they have got your child's best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And they are doing it for her best, basically, for the best reason. They wouldn't just do it. But then September, when she went back in September 2022, there was more incidents. She couldn't apparently cope with school. She couldn't cope with the other children in school because they was unpredictable in her class. So she was restricted literally to the house, which she had moved into Aspen House actually in April 2022. So she was in Cedar from April 2021 to April 2022, where she was moved with the older kids because the little kids were lashing out at her. She would be under a blanket and a little one would go and bite her, so obviously she can't hear it coming, she can't see it coming. And Katie gets on better with boys than she does girls. I think they're more predictable for her. That might be due to the fact that she's got a brother. So she's used to being around boys, she's not used to being around girls.
Yeah.
So they moved her to Aspen, and then obviously that summer is when it all started going. Then September, I had a report that she had been restrained numerous times, that she wasn't allowed to go into the school. She found it too much. It wasn't safe for her to go out on the veto because she had tried to attack the driver and people on the bus. We asked if it was because they had anything in the front, like food, because I was getting them behaviours at home, where she would lean forward and be asking me for food, which I'd have nothing, and then I would get the behaviours at home in a car on my own. So I had to introduce a crilling harness at home for her safety and mine, obviously, when we're driving, which Bradstow kept saying to me, they need to risk assess it. It's not safe to use without risk assessing it, which never really happened. And then she had a big incident where I'd FaceTimed with her and she had a massive black eye, and I was told she had done that on the metal gate, on the padlock, on the way to school. They had tried to introduce drives to regulate her in the morning, which obviously all stopped when the behaviours happened on the bus. Then I got a call, I can't remember his name now, I want to say Jordan Green, but that might just be because I've just read that. Or Greg, it might even be Greg.
There's Greg Edwards or Aaron.
That's the one, Greg Edwards, who told me that they was going to take Katie to hospital to try and get her extra help because of her display of more erratic, intense behaviours, which obviously I agreed to, because anything that's going to help my child has got a green light with me. But 2 days later I got a phone call from my local CAMS doctor, psychiatric, saying that they tried to get her sectioned. And their misconduct up at the hospital in the QEQM had been reported to Bradstow because of the words they was using and the context they was using regarding my child, refusing to let her go back to Bradstow. She's not coming back with us. We can't handle her, everything. When I spoke to the school, they told me no, that's not the case. We actually had an emergency meeting with KCC, the school that my husband and me went down to Bradstow to actually attend and see him face to face, because we was obviously reeling, because that's not what our plan was. We wasn't informed of that, where they literally sat in that meeting and denied it. Absolutely denied it.
So can I just get this right? The school took your daughter to the QEQM hospital in Margate.
Weren't the first time.
Wasn't the first time, but on this occasion they took your daughter there.
Yeah.
And they then tried, as a school, to have your daughter sectioned.
Without my permission.
Without your permission and without your knowledge.
Yeah. Explained it to me that they had tried to get her extra help.
And they were saying they'd never done it.
Yep.
And they were saying they were trying to get extra help.
Yep.
And it was only later that you found out from the doctor at CAMS.
It was within 48 hours that she phoned me and said, did I realise that that was what they was trying to do?
And they still denied it.
And they still denied it in a meeting. And it's not until I've got the doctor's reports, because obviously it's all on her doctor's records, that it was in black and white, that is what they tried to do.
And this was senior management?
Yes, it would have been.
I mean that's astounding. I mean,
For it.
So what happened after that?
Obviously you believe them, and you think, what is going on? But you've trusted them, you believe everyone, the recommendations it comes that, you know, it's water off a duck's back is the word that keeps coming to mind. These behaviours are water off a duck's back. They can handle it, they can do it. Obviously the behaviours that Katie is displaying is the reason that Katie went there. Because when you're at home, you don't get much support. Yes, you have a SEN school, but at that time, obviously with COVID, she was on a limited timetable, she was on a restricted timetable, and it's just unfair for these kids as it is. So to see something like a light at the end of the tunnel to give these kids a life with people that you think, they know what they're doing, they're professionals. And then obviously Katie's behaviours, she wouldn't transition back, so that was classed, and I know that's similar. That's the first time I've heard that. That Katie refused to get out the car. That even me and her dad would go, come on Kate, like, and push her out the seat and try and encourage her back, and we was told that she can't transition. But we thought obviously it's just because she's had fun at home with us maybe, and that she didn't want to go back because she's only ever been with us. But when you go through the reports now, you see the shit they was doing to my girl without my knowledge. Due to obviously the sectioning, you had a positive support worker come in. I can't think what part they're from, but I can send you their details. That tried to avoid breakdown for these children in their placement. So try and help and give strategies. The amount of complaints that that person put in about the misconduct of them, putting my daughter in a supine from a standing position, going up behind her, people coming out of nowhere, left alone in the shower, them trying to get funding for 5 to 1, saying Katie needed 5 to 1 members of staff with her, but then leaving her alone in the shower is most of the reports, or being isolated. Obviously I've just read a report in front of you that I didn't know about, where she was given space and observed from outside the room. Obviously so many health and safety risks with a child that can't even make herself a hot drink without, the risks, not knowing the risks, and she's left in a shower unattended, in an ensuite shower unattended, and her only form of communication is by her behaviour, which would be banging their head, or I've just read some wailing out and they're verbally reassuring her she's bloody deaf. If she's not making eye contact with you, it don't matter how loud you shout, she's not gonna hear you, she's profoundly deaf. There's incident reports of her banging her head 10 times before they've even intervened, which she's got bilateral cochlear implants. So even though she's a non-user, her head is a high risk of causing infection into her skull. So obviously some of these things could have been more serious. But yeah, they served notice in October 2022 with nowhere to go, and just put out like some expired milk is, I think, the words I used in a meeting with Penny. When you've brought complaints to Penny, I look into that. Oh, that don't sound like us, but we'll look into that. Nothing was ever looked into. I've done complaints since Katie's left, but obviously now Penny's left, it's stuck at that level, so I haven't had an outcome. So now I can't escalate it any further because Penny's not even looked at it before she's decided to jump ship and not take any accountability for this, which is hard.
So you've got some very, very serious outstanding complaints with the school that have not been taken any further.
No further. And it's stuck at that level because it's with the head teacher and obviously she's left.
But there's a new head teacher, surely the work should be transferred.
It should be, you would think so, but no contact.
So they've not... have you tried to get in touch with them and say what's going on?
To be honest with you, Ian, I feel like we're banging our head against the brick wall, because the louder you shout, the more you stamp your feet, you're shut down, it's your child, it's autism. You're not taken seriously. And I think my grievance as well is with the local authority and Wainsworth, as well as the school, because no one was overseeing this. And there's about 10 children that I'm now aware of in the same time period as my daughter that was treated like shit.
10?
There's 10. And then everyone blames KCC, like they've not funding, they're not this, they're not that. That's because what Bradstow was saying to people, there's no evidence. There's no evidence in the reports that there was 5 members of staff with my child at all times, which is going to be intimidating enough on a 15, 16-year-old girl who's short, massive curly hair that actually got cut, which has been denied. She had come home all the time with a sore groin area because she's incontinent, so that shows that she was left in pads, wet pads, soiled pads. We haven't had any of that since she's been home. So it just shows the level of care that she was receiving, that we trusted her. And no one to oversee it.
Can I ask you a final question, if that's okay? Sorry.
I'm ready to go up there.
The school looks likely to close, and there's a period of consultation going on now about the future. What would you say? Because I totally understand, having autistic daughters myself, that special schools are needed and can be so damn good as well. But what are your views on Bradstow? Open, close, investigate, get new management? What would you think?
I think the staff that obviously were there in this time frame need to be held accountable, if I'm honest. They need to tell us what the hell they think they was playing at. I think they're used to most parents just burying their head in the sand and going, no, that won't ever happen to our child, because, you know, but they need to be held accountable. The school needs to be more transparent if it stays open. It needs a complete change of people that actually do put the children at the heart of it. That, you know, if it was their child going there, how would they expect their child to be treated? I think it's the same with the care homes and stuff, with Jack's Law that we're signing to as well. You know, the most vulnerable children of this society, as well as the most vulnerable adults, you never think it can happen to yours. And when it does, it breaks you. It breaks you. Because we signed our children up to that, believing it was the best. So the school needs a complete revamp, complete people that actually give a shit and treat these kids how they would want to be treated.
Okay, ready in your own time.
Yeah. As a parent of a child who previously attended Bradstow School from January 2017, I'm appalled at the thought that there are possibly parents out there who potentially have been made to feel like I feel today. Bradstow management took a drastic shift of negativity. Their behaviour became somewhat them, the dictators, and us, the little people, the parents that don't know our children. When Sarah Dunn, who I found to have a positive impact on my child's well-being, left and the principal Penny Donswell took over, anything that Sarah Dunn had put in place for my child to have a positive outlook and impact on his life was slowly withdrawn. Yet they still received and was paid one-to-one funding, which is clearly never used on my never used on my child, which was agreed via KCC. This amount exceeds £56,000 for a day student, 36 hours a week, one-to-one funding. Management evidently led each other like puppets. This is evident in my internal emails from a SARS request, which I recommend every parent, ex-parent and staff member to do. This will gain knowledge. Knowledge gains power. These internal emails prove they made some kind of conspiracy to discredit me and my family. They became bullies. They used gaslighting behaviour to make out to external agencies that I was unhinged, that I was malicious in my communications. Emails to KCC, case manager, and social services, blaming the parent, blaming the home life for injuries sustained in their care. Even asking KCC to change transport to stop me picking my child up. This is what I had to deal with on a regular day-to-day basis. It started with them, the current managers. These are not new managers. They were internally promoted. Liaison officers who were supposed to be there for the parents, and even teaching staff and other staff had been dictated to and told what they can and can't say. By refusing to be open and transparent, and when questioned daily from me about events that resulted in and from my child, causing my child to self-harm in their care, internally implying to social services these injuries were done at home, but their evidence and their incident sheets and their reports proved beyond reasonable doubt they were done in their care. To assaults causing my child harm Added to this evidence that they supplied proves neglect. To keep my child safe to not keep my child safe by not using the funding that was put forward to keep him safe in their care. Even setting up special email addresses that they, and I had no idea who they were, would reply every 3 days. And then choosing to threaten me in one such email by saying, your child's absence will go down as, I can't think of the word, and it's not here because I'm overly
That's okay.
unauthorised. Failed to put their name to the email, and then the principal, Penny Doswell, emailed and said, oh, I thought Elliot Blackmore was dealing with that, as he'd responded. So I knew the threats were coming from him. When they could not silence me, they continued to try and discredit me. They even went to Kent Police with an allegation of malicious communication. When I was interviewed under cautions, these allegations were, and I can evidence this, found to be completely untrue. Allegations using evidence provided via Bradstow School. No charges were brought against me. Me, a parent who was only ever asking questions in the best interest of my child to safeguard my child, a job they were entrusted and obliged to take, and they undertake, and they failed. They know what they did. They choose to work against me, cause myself and my child unnecessary stress and trauma in the process. They all, and I would like to name all of them, but for legal reasons I'll wait, failed to nurture, teach, sustain and safeguard my child. They created an unsafe, untenable relationship, leaving my child, yes, my child had trauma that they caused. My child started self-harming in their care. My child didn't self-harm at home. My child had night terrors at home about what my child was going through in their care. They left my child in fear for my child's own safety. And that fear of my child being hurt by others and adults who were entrusted to care for him. This trauma that has required, and my child is still undergoing, intensive therapy. My child said in one therapy session, I survived Bradstow. I am lucky I took the safeguarding lead role to maintain my child's voice and maintain my child's safety. My voice was heard by me and my family, but not them. They chose to refuse to take any responsibility or accountability to fix this situation, resulting in KCT supporting the permanent removal from formal education because they chose not to safeguard my child, to protect him from harm and neglect, and to keep my child safe in education. That is my statement, and everything I say is true and can be evidenced.
Thank you. Begin at the beginning. How long was your child at Bradstow School?
So Jack started in September 2021 and he finished in May, so he stopped being residential in May 2023,
yeah.
And then he left the school altogether in October 2023.
And what were your first impressions of Bradstow?
When I went to see the school, I had been recommended it by somebody I knew, so I felt that it was I looked around and I was really impressed with what they had to offer. In his first year, there was multiple issues I had with regards to unexplained marks and bruising on him, where I felt it came from the school, the education side. The experience he had in the home seemed to be a positive one. He was taken out all of the time. Whenever I'd phone, he was never there. He did so many activities that I suppose that to me made me believe that maybe wasn't as serious where the bruising was coming from in the school. I was also misled because I was told that these were all, that often he was getting harmed by other children, that I was being told were all kind of just so happened that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But later on I found out that it was the same child who was harming him every time. So nothing was ever done by the staff to rectify, and I believe there was a lot of untoward stuff going on in the classroom. I now know that he was suffering with transitioning to school, which they were classing as just autistic behaviour, but actually it was because of what was happening in that classroom. In the second year, I had a lot less incidents reported to me at school, which seemed that now he was in a new environment, it had improved. However, his experience in the homes was night and day. Suddenly he wasn't taken out anymore. He only really went off site if I took him. He no longer, I was given excuses from the weather to staffing for why he wasn't going out anymore, even though that had never been an issue the previous year. And I knew that would affect his behaviour, it would affect his sleeping, it would change his experience of the school because he needs to go out often, as anyone does.
Yeah.
And I was lied to by the management in the homes and told that his behaviours had not changed, that it had not affected his sleep. I was told he sleeps every night. And then have since found out that there were actually multiple incidents throughout, from December 2023 until May 2023, where he didn't sleep at all on some nights. These reports talk about him being very loud, and yes, he basically, I was lied to about the behaviours, and everything was made to sound like he was doing very positively. And then there were other things that had happened in between that as well. So Jacob's, I've said his name now, he absconded from school. He absconded from school due to staff negligence, letting him ride behind them on a scooter in an ungated area. He was lost in the community. I was stopped from speaking to staff. I was told that any communication I had with staff in the education side was to be filtered through senior management, and other rules were changed, such as anything you wanted to ask the school, just even general questions that you could ask reception, had to all go through email. So no longer could you have conversations with people about your child without it being noted down what you were saying, and they would all be responded to by senior management. Even in the homes, they tried to put it that you should write through the care management team if you had issues at the short breaks, rather than going directly to the home and phoning up and speaking to someone. And then in May 2023, my son reported to me that he was being physically abused by night staff in the school, and I never returned him to residential after that.
Good Lord. So you've got a situation, from what you've told me, where you began to get very worried about his safety and his care at the school. You raised those questions with staff. You weren't told the truth, and you subsequently discovered, I presume from information that the school was forced to give you, that in actual fact there were a number of disturbing incidents which you were never told about, and told everything was okay. He was kept on the premises when you were under the impression that he was going out into the community and getting out and about and generally enjoying himself. He was allowed to abscond and got lost in Broadstairs and luckily found. And then, obviously, with all the concerns that you had, which you were regularly raising with the school, you were then told that you can't speak to the staff and you could only go through senior management.
Yes, I couldn't speak directly to the people who are actually looking after Jack.
And they would be the people who would...
I'll start that again. Yeah, I couldn't communicate with the people who are looking after him directly. It had to be filtered through senior management, and I have emails that are between them and staff members discussing getting together to have conversations outside of being written down to discuss how they will respond to me. So this is what we were dealing with. We couldn't find out the information. They didn't want anything to be told to us that we would be able to pick up on. So they were very careful about filtering out what we could and couldn't know. So it was very hard for us to protect our son because we weren't being given the information that was truthful. It was all to make it sound like they were doing a fantastic job with him and to really suppress my ability to be able to look after him and protect him because I'm not being told the truth about the behaviours he's presenting with. Now that I know the difference, I'm just being told, well, prove it, because we're saying we did tell you all those things. Obviously, what I say to people is, why would I remove my son from a residential facility? Why would I do that if I didn't have serious reason? It meant he was then out of school for 7 months. If I'm removing him, I've got to have a very good reason as to why I would do that. And the abuse was one thing that he's reported to me, but their response to the abuse, what they'll tell you is that they did what they're legally obliged to do. So they ticked the boxes, they went up to and questioned staff and said, did you do this? And of course the staff said no, but never once did they try and obtain more information from my son. They never offered him any kind of therapy. They never sympathised with me or my family. They never took one word of what he was saying as evidence. They didn't look at the behaviours that he was presenting to add to that as evidence. They just said, the staff said they didn't, there is no evidence. That was the end of it. They did what they call an independent report investigation. It wasn't independent, it was for them. They paid for it and they were the ones who was allowed the report, not me. The report is just 2 pages long. Even though I spoke to the investigator for days at a time, it's 2 pages long and it only looks through 6 weeks of information, even though I told them that my son had been doing this behaviour of hitting himself on the head for 6 months. They advised me that they would be telling the school that they needed to be far more transparent about the information they were sharing with me, but that is not mentioned in the report. And the investigator also told me that he felt my son was communicating a story that he believed had happened, and then he wrote nothing about that in the report either. So the report classes the abuse as unsubstantiated, and that's the end of it, and that's their defence on it.
So, in effect, I mean, it sounds to me like there was a very serious and highly improper cover-up.
Yes.
And at what level was that cover-up? Was it, I mean, I'm assuming because he couldn't speak to the staff who looked after your son, the cover-up was at a senior management level.
I think it went all the way through. I've seen reports from the home manager where she does not mention anything about the behaviours that he was presenting at the time. She also mentions that he would hit staff and then say that they hit him, which is something I've never been told previously to that. It all seemed to make the story fit of why he might have made these allegations. And then it went up to a higher level as well because I was shut down on everything I tried to find out more about, and not one member of senior management ever phoned me in the month that I didn't have my son at school because he'd reported abuse to me. They never contacted me. The meeting that was held was called by me, and I asked them to come to the meeting. And Penny Doswell sat with her head down, scribbling into a notepad for the entire meeting. She didn't even look at me once. And that was it, basically.
Are you aware of any other parents who have experienced similar things to you?
I am, yes.
But has that happened subsequent to your child leaving, or did you become aware at the time?
I become aware after the fact. At the time, I felt like I was the only parent who was experiencing that. The school did a very good job of ensuring that parents didn't have contact with each other. They changed the arrangements for when parents go in and visit the school. So we would have these special days throughout the year where there would be events put on that included parents and they could come to the school. They were always on weekends, but they changed it to be on pick-up days, which meant that parents couldn't go. I went to one of these events, there was 4 parents there, and the rest of it was just staff. The dynamic completely changed. We wasn't given opportunities to speak to each other. And where we're all from different boroughs and counties, you don't get to know each other. So we never had chances to have these conversations about concerns we had.
And what I understand that there was a parents' notice board, something that parents could post comments on email or what have you.
I never was aware of that. I've never been aware of anything that would say that I could speak to another parent. Personally, I didn't when I was there.
Did your complaints get through to the governors, do you know? Were the school governors in any way informed about your issues?
I made a complaint initially because I wanted my complaint to go through to stage 2, which means it goes to the governors, and that was with regards to 2 things. It was regards to the absconding incident that had happened. I felt that information was left out of the report that was written about the absconding because of investigations I'd done myself. I asked for the report to be changed and senior management refused to do that. So I asked for my complaint to go to stage 2 for that reason, and also because it had just been reported to me about the abuse, and this was at the time when my son was attending as a day student, and I wanted to address that I felt no one had really taken my son's voice seriously. I had a video call with the governors, the person who was chairing asked me why I was bothering them with the information that I had taken my complaint to stage 2 because they felt my complaints had been answered about the absconding. They didn't know at that point about the abuse allegations. I told them, a couple of the governors seemed to be really sympathetic to what had happened. They said they would go and investigate and find out more information. They came back straight away and said that they seriously refuted any allegation of abuse and that all the things that were required to be done had been done, and that was the end of it.
And you, for going that far, you were told that you were wasting their time?
Pretty much.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, specifically about the absconding, they felt that I shouldn't have taken, but from my opinion is that they felt I shouldn't have taken it to stage 2 for that issue because they felt it had already been dealt with and that was the end of it.
Could I ask you a little bit about the future now? Mm-hmm. There's a consultation going on about the future of Bradstow School.
Yes.
And a lot of issues have been raised, finance, the capability of the management, and so on and so forth. I mean, it is quite a unique establishment.
Yeah.
What would your view be? Because you've got the local MP and local councillors in Thanet saying that the school is doing a great job and it shouldn't be closed. I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but what are your views on whether or not the school should stay open, and if it does stay open, under what conditions? Because it seems to me like that from what you're telling me, that there's one heck of a mess there in terms of management who seem to brook no criticism. What would your advice be to anyone who might be interested in this?
I think that the current campaigns to keep it open are placed purely on the reputation of the school prior to it being run by the people who are now running it. I think, they're very fortunate to have that reputation. There's a misconception that because one senior management member has resigned, that now means the school is being dealt with differently. But I believe that the people who are now running the school, they are the people who were making sure I didn't speak to anyone other than senior management. They were the people gaslighting me. They were the people who wouldn't let me access my son's, information for his well-being. So I believe that I don't want to see the school shut down. It's a fantastic facility. I'd hate to see it changed into something else. It's got so many, one of the things that attracted me to it were the facilities. It did used to be a great school, and I'd love to see it stay as that. I believe that the senior management need to be removed. I believe some of the governing body need to be removed. I think it just needs to start afresh with new ideas, and that the people who are corrupt and doing these things need to step down, and I don't believe they should work in education anymore. I do feel for the parents that are there, but I think that people need to listen to the facts. We can't keep basing this on children who were there 10 years ago or staff who worked there 10 years ago, which we're reading about so much. It's what it is now. I'm not the only parent who's experienced this. My child ended up with no school, nowhere to go. My husband had to leave his job because we had no one to help look after him. So there is a reality for other people, and it was under the people who now run the school. I think the MP needs to call an inquiry into what has happened at the school, and not just blindly be going along with this campaign because it sounds nice and fluffy, and it sounds like, of course, this is a building that's well known in around Thanet. People know of the children there, and I don't want to see these children have nowhere to go. Absolutely do not want that. But I do want the management to go.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.